Hey, can we talk for a second about Chris Mortensen?
Yeah, sure.
All right, so Chris Mortensen passed away over the weekend. He was 72. But what I've been watching with both the retirement of Peter King last week and the passing of Chris Mortensen this weekend is both those guys are good examples. This is a very cutthroat business, and it is loaded with a-holes. Just every place I've ever worked, there have been a-holes.
Yep.
And those guys are a testament to you don't have to be a jerk to be phenomenally successful.
Sure.
Both of them, by any measure. Well, they're both in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, right.
I mean, but by any measure, you watch the reactions pouring in from people that used to work with Mortensen, who work with them now. Daniel Jeremiah, who was one of Mort's proteges, broke down crying over the weekend because he said, this guy gave me my career.
Sure.
He said he doesn't, without Chris Mortensen, I don't have any of this.
Yeah.
And he didn't have to do it. He didn't even know me. He let me follow him around as an intern, and he took a liking to me, and he encouraged me to do it. And as big of a hail fellow well met to Chris Mortensen, who was born in the South
Torrance,
Bay.
right?
Yeah, in Torrance. His first job was at the South Bay Daily Breeze.
Oh, wow.
And then went on this kind of wild odyssey. He was one of the first insiders. He left print and went to ESPN, went to TV, and then broke like 1,000 stories.
Yeah, yeah.
And he had been ill. He was diagnosed with throat cancer in 2016. He kind of got through that.
Yep.
But then the cancer came back. He left a year ago. But I encourage you to read the reaction of his passing from all the people that used to work with him.
Yeah.
And you'll just be blown away by how everybody was affected by this guy.
I saw Schefter this morning. Schefter said, they knew he had been sick for a long time.
Yeah, they knew it was coming.
But Schefter had just spoken to him and said it came as a surprise that he couldn't have imagined that it would happen that fast. So,
Peter King said that when he announced his retirement last week, Mortensen called him to congratulate him, and he didn't even know he was hurting.
Yeah, yeah.
And then he died, I think, on Sunday.
Yeah.
I think he passed away on Sunday.
Well, hail fellow well man.
Yeah, and he was on our show
man.
a bunch of times and loved the South Bay, loved baseball. He covered the Braves for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. He had a great goofy spirit about him, and I think he's left a good roadmap for people that are like all these young insiders now who think they have to kill each other to get the story. He just never did that.
No, never did. Never did.
Good for him.
Yeah, and is going to be fondly remembered forever.
And it's funny. Like I'm right now. I'm watching NFL Live.
Yeah.
And Peyton Manning's on there talking about Mortensen.
Mm-hmm.
Manning liked him because he felt like he could trust him. And so even when he was on a leave with ESPN dealing with the throat cancer, Manning called him and said, I'm going to the Broncos, and I want you to break it. Because Mortensen had kind of taken care of Manning throughout his career. So Mortensen broke that story from his hospital bed because he had all that cachet with those guys. So good for him.
No easy way to do this, but yesterday was a really sad day too.
Mm-hmm.
I had just left the Dodger game, and I went to go grab a late lunch by my hotel before I went to go do the Suns OKC game last night.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw the news ESPN PR put out about Chris Mortensen passing away.
Yep.
And he had, for those that don't know, and maybe many of you know by now, he had been battling throat cancer for about a decade.
Yeah, I think he was diagnosed in 16 is when they said.
Yeah, and I will say that, and I'm sure if you've seen this stuff on social media, you've seen how many people, both colleagues at ESPN and colleagues just in general in media, there's an outpouring of just what a great guy he was. And all I will say to you is I thought Van Pelt nailed this last night. He's like, the only thing I can tell you is it's the truth. He legitimately, Cappy, at least with me, and I can only judge people by my own personal experiences with them, when I got to Bristol in 2013, I was there for 3 years. He could not have been nicer, more generous, more supportive, more just really helpful and thoughtful in so many ways. And he barely knew me. He knew me through someone else. His relationship, the way he knew me was because I was friends with Dan Le Batard, but that was good enough for him, right? He had known Dan for many, many years from the journalism background. And he knew me through him and is like, hey, you're Dan's guy, you're my guy. And he was always so kind to me there. And then when I came here to LA, when I was doing the morning show, he used to come on with me and Key and LZ all the time. And we'd have a blast talking to him. And Mort was just truly not only a legend and a pioneer, that goes unsaid, in regards to the way he really took NFL reporting to a completely different level, for a generation of people to learn information from, but also a generation of media types then behind him to be able to take that torch and move forward. Adam Schefter, I thought, had some incredible words about Mort, like literally going to bat for him to come to ESPN at the time, and really giving his blessing to kind of anoint him as the next guy. And just all the stuff I've seen has just been really heartfelt and incredible. But it's just so sad, man, because what a wonderful person to be around. And he's going to be missed for sure.
Yeah. So listen, I did not have that kind of relationship with Chris Mortensen. My relationship with Chris was, I'd call him and ask him to come on the radio, and he'd always do it. And then, you'd see him at Radio Row at the Super Bowl, and for 20 plus years, year after year after year, Mort would come by, and it was a tradition. You'd expect to spend some time with Chris Mortensen. So from my perspective, it's not like I was close to him at all. Certainly had a face-to-face relationship, but not close. But I think if you're a radio listener and you're an ESPN viewer, what happens is these guys become part of your life. You get to know them. My friend John Clayton, when he died a year or two ago, I guess it was like a year and change ago, like you knew John Clayton because he was a personality on ESPN. You know Chris Mortensen because you saw him on every NFL show, on every Sports Center. And the thing is that even after you knew that he was ill and that he'd been battling cancer, his passion and his love was still NFL football and talking about it on TV, and he kept coming back. So even when he was gone for a while, he'd come back for more. And just, I'm not thinking about this as I had a personal relationship with him. I'm thinking about it as a viewer, you get to know these guys. And 72 years old, George, like, I know that sounds old.
It's not.
But not today.
No.
72 is not that old anymore.
Yeah.
So, and I know it, listen, hey, the good news for Chris Mortensen and his family was when he got diagnosed in 2016, he got an extra 8 years out of it. And yes, a lot of that time was, dealing with the sickness and battling it, but you got that much more time with your family. So.
Yeah, and condolences obviously to his family, his wife Mickey, and his son Alex. He loved those people so much. Like, he always talked about them, at least around us back in those days. So, again, may he rest in peace.
Damn
He'll be
right.
missed for sure.
Damn right. And I'll tell you something, just on a lighter note, just to get out of here.
Yeah.
I'm freaking pissed. I just downloaded this Waymo app.
Yeah.
You got to have like a special invitation to get in on this thing.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, dude. I'm downloading your app and I'm ready to give it a try. I'm ready to go driverless.
Real quick, by the way, great job pointing this out in the circle. Chris Mortensen, also from Torrance, the city that I love as much as any, as you know. Mm-hmm. So shout out to Chris Mortensen.
From here, Lindsay.
Yeah, Torrance.
Is he from
legit
there?
Torrance?
He didn't just like live there for 2
South
years.
Bay Zone, Torrance.
Okay.
Yes.
He didn't play at Sierra Canyon.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, may he rest in peace. We love you,
Amen.
Mort.